Now, lawmakers have frowned at the envelope system of funding the annual budget, calling it an anti-democratic and urging for its discontinuation. This criticism came as the Appropriation Committee began receiving reports from various Senate committees. According to the committee, the envelope system undermines effective budget planning and development, urging the government to adopt a more efficient and needs-based approach. Persisting shortfall in government's revenue is a major hindrance to the wholesome realization of its budgetary provisions. Now, year after year, ministries, departments, and agencies groan over the insufficient budget allocation. Every fiscal year, there has been a replay of budget rhetoric lamentation by agencies' heads of budget defense sessions coordinated by the National Assembly, with MDAs groaning over truncated capital projects occasioned by dearth of funds. Well, let's talk to a chartered accountant, public affairs analyst, Mr. Kola Ogunleye, to get his view around this very important topic of discourse surrounding Nigeria's budgeting system. Thank you so much. It's your first time on the program. We appreciate you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank
Viewers
you
at home as well. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. I think we should start with first our budgeting system. I think it's good we start this discussion this way.
Yeah.
We now have a budgeting cycle of January to December. I think that started towards the end of President Buhari's tenure, before the former President Buhari, before President Tinubu came on board. And many have commended that effort by government. What's your understanding or your overview of Nigeria's budgeting system and implementation so far?
Okay, thank you very much. I think we need to start with even what is budget itself. What's the budget? When you talk, everybody talks about budget. In your house, in the firms, in the industries, in the corporations, we all talk about budget. It's just part of planning ahead. So when you have a situation where the government is serious about what it wants to do, it must come up with a budget. And this is also enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that an appropriation bill must be laid before the National Assembly within a particular time, and it must be approved by that assembly. That's public budget. Just like I said, even in our house, by January 1st, everybody is talking of budget for the year, budget for the month. So the same thing applies to the government. Government must operate through budgets. So budget is a plan of how you intend to make revenues and spend money in the coming months, quarters, and of course, a year ahead. And it is expected that it dovetails into a national plan, so that you have a situation where there is also what is called medium-term expenditure framework. That's a 3-year rolling budget that the annual budget fits into. So this whole thing is like you are looking at a series of budgets. There's the national plan, that's maybe like 10 years. There is a rolling plan, a 3-year budget, which is like you are saying from 2023 to 2025. So when it gets to 2024, you increase it by 1 year again and say you are looking at 2024 to 2026. That's budget generally. It's a way the government plan to make money and spend it on various developmental projects for the citizens of the country. At the center, at the core of this is a major goal: welfare of the people, and making sure that our economy runs properly. That's the only way, because that is fiscal part of the economy. You guys talk about banking, monetary policy, and all of that all the time. But the fiscal side of it, the one that concerns the government of the day, how it carries out its responsibility, is via the budget process. So that's budget itself. Then what about the whole issue of budgeting? Why the who's and cries in the last couple of years? Before now, we were using what is called traditional budgeting or incremental budgeting, whereby if you budget a sum of money today, maybe 100 million naira or 1 billion for your ministry, department, or agent, all you need to do next year is to say, okay, there's a general increment of 10% over that what you spent last year to take care of inflation, growth, and other things. So maybe 10%, maybe 15%, you just apply it across the board. And that's what we call incremental budgeting or the traditional budgeting. But that's not the case now. After some time, I think it was during Okonjo-Iweala's time, or Bode Agosto, you know, both of them acting together, one in budget, one in finance. They came up with this envelope thing to say that the system of budgeting that we were operating before encouraged so many laxities, because the budget must satisfy certain criteria. It must ensure accountability, it must be transparent, it must be prudent, and it must ensure good implementation. What is the purpose of a budget that cannot be implemented? It's like the head of the family saying, I will spend 1 million naira in the next 1 month. But you can't even come up with 400 naira. And there is no credit to support it. So that's crazy. So they said, look, most of the issues that we are talking about here has to do with how do you ensure that you have a budget that is implementable. So they came up with the envelope system.
Yes.
And you know, the envelope system is just what we used to do in those days, whereby you have envelopes. You say, once you earn your salary in those days, you put 500 naira in this envelope. This is for food. 400 naira into this one. This is for groceries. 300 naira to this. This is for children's runs to school. Fueling. So you put it in different envelopes. So once you need anyone and you label them. That's how it started. So when you want to pay for maybe children are going to school, you just go to their envelope. Then when you want to pay for groceries, you take that envelope. I mean, it's purely cash-based. And you know why it is transferable into the government sector? Government accounting over the years has been run on cash-based. You know, it's not done on any other basis. It's what you earn that you spend. That is government. Unlike the private sector, where there is a Quora system, you know, whereby you can operate on credit and all of that. You have debtors, creditors all over the place, you know, for a company, for example. But in government, it's cash-based. You make money, you spend it.
Yes.
Yeah, like you rightly observe in your intro, the major problem that is leading to all these issues is insufficient revenue.
Yes.
Or what I call revenue volatility. You know, if you are very sure of how much you are going to earn, you can throw money around anyhow. Of course, I know that. I mean, the federal government wants to do everything that it can do. But what is interesting in the current debate and discussion about envelope system is that it is both the MDAs and the committees that are complaining.
At the moment?
At the moment. Way back in 2023, even the current deputy Speaker of the House, Benjamin Kalu, openly said that they are going to come up with another a new system that you call program-based budgeting. So let me go into how it currently works now. Is that the ministries are allocated funds by the planning and budget people, you know, maybe including finance. They know the revenue they want to make in the year. They have estimated it.
Yes.
If it's so much, okay, let's now give it to different sectors. Those different sectors are now going to share it among their departments and agencies. For example, if you give the Minister of Defense 1 trillion naira, you know, for example, the Ministry of Defense will now say, okay, police, you take this. So it gives a lot of discretion to the heads of those sectors. Let me put it that way. I'm not going to use the word ministries, departments and agencies, because the sectors, education sector, health sector. Inside the education sector, there are universities, federal universities, there are federal polytechnics, there are vocational institutions, there are colleges of education, and all other organizations.
Yes.
In the Ministry of Health, you have the university teaching hospital, you have general hospitals, you have all manner of institutions. In fact, there was a particular case when the money that they wanted to spend to renovate a structure within a particular ministry was just the money that is allocated to a department in the ministry. So you can say that that's not good enough. A lot of the, I know that the Inspector General of Police has complained this time around.
Yes.
Last year, it was the Chief of Army Staff that was complaining that he needed about so much money, little is being given to him. How do you do defense? How do I manage my police? So they are saying that it is not democratic enough. That what they do at the planning and budget department is to take an overview of everybody and based on their own discretion, allocate the fund. They want it to be needs-based. That it should be needs-based, that the money they are going to spend in each of the ministries and departments must be determined by needs.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, the traditional system that I spoke about earlier on do what is called circularization. 4 or 5 months to the end of the year, circulars will be sent out. Ministries, departments, agents, units, come up with whatever you want to do. They will give them guidelines. They say, this is the way you go about it. So each person will bring his own. Each unit will bring his own. Each department will bring his own. So they want to collect it together. So the Ministry of Budget and Planning, as well as the Ministry of Finance, as the case may be, because there was a time they were not separated.
Yes.
They were acting together. So they will be the clearing house for this. So at the end of the day, they will now say, okay, no, priorities. What are the priorities of the government of the day? What does Asiwaju want to do now? What is most important to government? Then they say, okay, this is it. You will take this much. We can't release this much to these people. But that one will have been a bit systematic. And it's something that they can hold on to and defend. When something is thrown to you inside the budget, and you have to go to the Committee on Defense to defend it, and they're asking you questions. How do you come about this amount? What happened? You said, you don't know. Our needs that we send to them is this much, but this is what we get. So these are the issues around envelope system. And it has been found not to be suitable for our environment because of our peculiarities. Agreed, there is the issue of revenue, which is both unstable and inadequate. Because inadequacy is one thing, but there is also volatility in the sense that, look at what is happening now. Trump is saying, come down on the price of oil. Go down on
and that would affect revenue generation one way or the other.
And then all the revenue that we earn in this country, the majority of it depends on external factors.
What sort of budgeting system now are we supposed to be looking at for a country like Nigeria?
I will say that we need to go into hybrid budgeting. That is, we are not going to stay on, say, envelope system. We are going to do hybrid. You are going to have a mix of the traditional system, envelope system, and what is called zero-based budgeting, depending on the peculiarities of each of these people. But we all know what they are going to get. And there are guidelines. Let me give you an example of zero-based budgeting, which is the fact that you must justify every project, every budget session. You won't tell me that you spent 100 million last year and you are still on that project and you have not completed it. No way. You must tell me what it will take you to complete that project. And you must justify it from the beginning. So you are not likely to be allowed to do any form of mago-mago or hanky-panky with the budgeting system. That's zero budget system. It is the ultimate goal of every government, every institution, to have a system because it requires a lot of data and the capacity and the capability within each of these agencies must be enough to do it, because that one, you must justify every penny. If you want to build a dam, or you want to build a road, or you want to construct a housing estate, you must justify it ab initio. That means the plans, everything must have been ready, and you are going to say, this is how much I would need. Every budget year, you must come for that. The second, the other thing I'm talking about the traditional system is that there's nothing wrong with our circularization system, whereby circulars are sent to these people. Let's have proper needs assessment at the level of the agency or department and say, okay, this is what we will need. We will now determine that relative to the overall revenue that we are expecting. If everybody comes up with something like maybe 50 trillion, and we know that our revenue is not going to be more than 30 trillion, then everybody must go down. But in going down, you must also take care of priorities. There are some expenses you can't do anything about.
True.
In the United States, they have come up with what is called discretionary spending. Those things, you can see what happened when Trump attempted to stop certain things. There was cash freeze that he initiated some 72 hours ago. Within 48 hours, it has gone back on them, because those are discretionary spendings that have been approved by the National Assembly. It is not all expenses that must be carried to the National Assembly all the time. We must have some standard expenses that are already there, maybe because of their importance, security, maybe social security and all of that. All these cash transfer stuffs, we must have done homework on them and say, okay, let's carry it to them. and let them give a kind of global approval. And then we have an approval. So next year we are coming, we just come with that one for, this is discretionary spending. This is the one that will go into yearly appropriation. We must go into that system. And we must allow our units, departments, ministries, and agencies to come up with their destiny. On a very, very serious note, we need to start a process that connects our annual budgets to our major planning efforts. Because all this talk about, they gave me 10 million, I wanted 200 million. If there is a robust plan that is long term, maybe like 5 years or 6 years, that we know that this is where we are going and this is what we have taken. If there are changes based on the conditions of the country, we all know that there are changes and there will be no issue. But once we have a situation whereby the budget is always that, okay, as we speak now, you know the budget of 2024 is going to terminate at the middle of this year. And we have another budget that they will approve sometimes.
Yes, yes.
So by the time that one comes on board and the other one too comes on board, we'll be running 2 budgets together. You understand me? Now, and the revenue itself is a major issue. The bills that will have helped us with the revenue is still underway. Because once that bill is done and we now have a bigger pie, what all of us should be working at now is how do we improve the revenue? People should concentrate less on expenditure. Expenditure will happen naturally, but we need to boost our revenue. Because it is this lack of revenue that means that if you ask for 4 billion, you are getting 400 million or 250 million,
yes,
which is very, very inadequate. In fact, most of them are saying they won't even come for budget defense again.
Yeah.
That something has to be done about the envelope system. But I think the immediate thing to happen is to allow MDAs to do their needs assessments.
True.
Get this thing across to the planning and budgeting unit within reasonable time. They must have gotten that thing there at least 5 months to the end of the year. We must have a proper budget calendar that terminates on December 31 so that our budget can start running from January
1st.
Yes, that has to happen. I know there are so many issues because government has to settle down, a lot of things are happening, but the budget calendar must become sacrosanct. And what that means is that there may be a need for the National Assembly itself to come up with a bill regulating the process of budgeting. That is the budget process itself, whether it is envelope system, whether it is an hybrid. Whereby you combine envelope with traditional system with some zero budgeting system.
Yeah.
Most of these issues must be guided by a law. Apart from the constitutional provisions, we need a law that will guide it. So there will be a budget calendar. By the end of June, all ministry departments and agencies, I want to make sure that their needs, what they want to do, everything is already with the planning and budgeting. So they can even have some kind of back and forth discussion. This one cannot go. This is what we have. So it is not that it's embarrassing for a department of government to go defend the budget, and that's when you are not telling me that you don't even know that this is the budget. It should be the senators and the House of Reps members that should be challenging what you have brought. But right now, even you that you have come for the defense, you are at sea as to what's going on. So those are the things that we need to really look at. And like I said, we must make our national plan and the budget speak to each other. That's the point. That's the point about having a planning and budget department. They must work every time to make sure that budget, and we must have what's going on. How far have we gone in terms of the plan?
Maybe that was why there was that break in the ministry. We now have budget.
No, we now have budget. Yeah, that has been now for some time. I mean,
how effective has that been?
Yeah, well, because if I tell you my personal opinion, which I have expressed in different fora before, my own opinion is that finance, budget, and planning may just be together. But if they are not going to be together, they must handshake all the time, because they are all, interwoven. So there's a way that you do your national plan,
yes,
and it must connect with your budget. Right now, if they don't speak to each other, that's not too good. But there is one way they can speak to each other. There is the medium-term framework, which talks about 3-year rolling plan, which means that we plan ahead for the next 3 years. How does that connect with the yearly budget in the real sense of it? Those issues must be looked at, you know.
We are going to have a part 2 of this conversation. I know this time is not going to be enough for Mr. Kola Ogunleye, and I know that even our viewers will know that there's a lot that you have to tell us. But for today, that's all we can take. I must tell you, I must thank you so very much for your time. It's been a very interesting conversation. And Mr. Kola Ogunleye is an architect. He's a chartered accountant. He wears many caps. He is also a public affairs analyst. And you'll be seeing him more on the show, helping us break down most of these issues. Thank you so very much for joining us today. We appreciate your time, you coming into the studio. We don't take this for granted. Thank you so much, Mr. Ogunleye.
Thank you very much. It's been a very nice time. You've got a fantastic studio here. I must say, I've been to many studios, but I'm not surprised.
Thank you so much, sir. Brilliant conversation. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you very much. Thank
Yeah,
you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.